Welcome all, this is Carbon Copy and I'm your host Karan JP. Today we have a very vibrant and interesting guest, Mrs. Annie Jacob, who's fully fledged in the educational industry. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be on this show or episode with you.
Super. Thanks for spending your valuable time with us. To have this conversation for our viewers. More than I'm actually eager to know your story behind your era with the Hindustan groups. Now, when you're talking about engineering, there's something which we particularly saw. Like interestingly, KCG has included fashion technology, to their course program. So, which is definitely kind of unique because not a lot of engineering universities, offer them. So, what was the thought process behind this?
In fact, we are the first in Tamil Nadu to have a BTech in fashion technology, and we were also instrumental in modifying a lot of syllabus. So the thought process behind that, to be honest, was we wanted to understand the technology behind textile fabrics, because all the other courses concentrates on the fashion per se, but the technological part of it, like what goes into the design with the kind of softwares that are used for fabric designing, what be it tie and dye, how is it, what is the intention with which that happens. So there are a lot of interesting areas where technology can improve the fashion design process. So that is how we actually ventured into it. And also we wanted to diversify from the conventional courses of mechanical, civil, which were the first ones. I mean, like the basic ones. So we decided we'll start off with BTech because it was not there in many of the university colleges, whereas our Hindustan University does have a department or a school of fashion technology. But the BTech part of it, or rather the technological advancements in fashion design and fashion process, is what interested us in starting our fashion technology.
Sounds really great. Like moving to the next question regarding women entrepreneurs. Like for you personally, how do you balance your work and personal life?
Um, I think work-life balance is there for everybody, right? Regardless of being, I mean, is it a gender issue? I don't know, because sometimes your environment can be favorable towards you, but any point of time, if you feel that, I mean, it's just basically you have to make your family understand why you're doing it, or how you're doing it. I'm sure there's a lot of support that you get. At least, my children have been very supportive, and I've tried my best to be there when they require. I mean, be it a school issue or a college issue. It's those moments, right, when they expect you to be there, if you are there, and if they understand what you're doing. So if the communication channels are open, I mean, there are certain instances where you actually discuss with them, like an institutional, something that came up in the institution. So you're there, they are there with you in the process, and they understand what you're doing. So it hasn't been very difficult for me to balance my work and my personal life. I mean, at least till date, it's been going on smooth.
Sounds great. So, I mean, now since you have adapted to a very, a very good balance in your work and personal life. So, right now, obviously, things are really, bad for all industries and personally for your educational institution as well. So, now since this lockdown is at play, so how has it technically affected your industry as a whole?
It's actually too early for us to assess the impact caused by this COVID. But what happened is, suddenly we we had to adapt to an e-learning or a digital mode. Initially, when the whole lockdown was announced or the social distancing was announced, we were under the impression it's just going to be there for a week, in terms of making sure that all the study material, all the links that they required, any reference material, we used Google Classroom at Modo to do that, and it was immediately published. And then we announced it to the students, saying, we are unsure about what is going to happen, looking at the statistics and the data that has happened all over the world. So let's just start this off. And we needed some time to make them comfortable also. So online learning, I would say we started it off in like a few days' time, for my faculty as well as my students. And there were technical difficulties where my infrastructure team, my IT infrastructure team, they supported the students. There were remote areas where the connectivity was an issue. There was geographic dislocation. So it took us some time to settle them, but I would say it is going perfectly well right now. With all the, they're very comfortable with the assessments that are happening, because we really don't know how to predict what is going to happen in the next couple of months. And we don't know if evaluations are going to happen, if examinations are going to take place, how the admission for the next year is going to be. Everything is in ambiguity. But that shouldn't stop us or freeze us from doing what we're supposed to do, because we need to keep the students engaged, make sure their physical, mental, and their academic inputs are given to them ideally. So we also took the parents into confidence, because the learning environment is going to be totally different for the students. It is not like when they come to college, when they're going to sit at home and classes are going to happen. So it took a lot of effort from my faculty side. There was a lot of mentoring happening. There was a lot of counseling. In fact, we pulled in our counselor also, in case there are issues where students were anxious about the whole thing, wondering what is going to happen. There was technological challenges that were there, in terms of some of them will not be very comfortable with either delivery of the classes or with receiving the sessions also. That took us quite some time. Meanwhile, just to keep the students a bit excited, we most of the projects or the competitions announced, like how would you assist when there is a societal issue like that, and under MHRD, AICT, a lot of government bodies had announced a lot of these competitions where students started giving solutions to the problems, like either coming up with a ventilator or a website to track this thing, or coming up with 3D designed masks. You just name it, they were like very enthusiastic to help as a part of their social responsibility. So that is how we made sure that the students were settling in well, even emotionally and mentally. And there are platforms like Coursera, which came forward and offered a lot of courses free, so that the students could upgrade themselves with the skills they needed, because projects were called off, internships were called off. And this is a time which is crucial for the final years also, because they were going into a job oriented, the next semester they were supposed to start off. So all these sort of, whatever the other platforms were initiated and facilitated, that helped us in managing our students very well. In addition to that, there were a lot of our social clubs took the initiative of helping the society. There was from Satyamangalam, I remember there was a request that the local people there couldn't understand the seriousness. So one of our students, in fact, developed a video for them to understand why it is important to stay safe and stay healthy. So various initiatives where the students and the faculty got involved in the process, which helped us kind of handle the situation sane, I would say, in a state of sanity, which was what was more important. And there were constant calls that my mentors would make to the children to students to find out if they were comfortable. Our alumni who had gone for higher studies, we wanted to make sure they had come back safely. And one good thing that we realized this time was, a lot of our alumni who have been settled and, they wanted to come forward and help us with a lot of webinar series, trying to keep the students them what is required. A lot of industry, like our centers of excellence, again, they came forward to tell us how they could upgrade their skills. So it worked, I think there was a lot of team effort and there was a lot of help from various avenues. And that has kind of helped us manage this 1 month. Today we are on the 30th day of lockdown. And so far we have been able to go forward without any hurdles. See, everything is unpredictable, everything is ambiguous at this point of time, because we really don't know if May we are going to open, if June we are going to open. So we've just chalked out a plan, varied for spread across 2-3 months, to make sure that we have something to give the students. It's not totally academic oriented. It can be a skill upgradation. It can be something to de-stress them. So our faculty are constantly working to come up with such initiatives, and we're making sure that the students are well informed and they are in constant touch with the faculty. So that's how we have managed the pandemic so far. We're yet to see what's going to happen in the month of May and in the month of June, which is, of course, a lot of anxiety on everybody. So we'll just have to wait it out and see what happens after the lockdown, or what's going to be the government order in a couple of weeks' time.
Okay. I just hope that all of this resumes fast, and we can all get back to our routine. Just note, maybe I can wrap this particular interaction by raising a toast. I mean, I hope you have your coffee mug with you. Yeah. So maybe you can just show it to our viewers, and maybe you can raise a toast, to your success and to all the efforts to pivot the institutions and by keeping up with the current trends, and a special toast to the future of our educational sector.
I would raise the toast to the success of all the students and all the faculty who are quite under an anxious phase, and I'm sure this also will pass, and we will go ahead and we will be able to survive this. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.